and it's a pleasure and an honor to be here and to moderate this session. The panel before us that Anne Burrell moderated was a very stimulating one, and one in which there were many lessons and ideas that we take away, and I know that this conversation is going to add to the richness of that. It is really wonderful that the National Archives is hosting this program here, and I think as has been said throughout the day, that the important lessons of history, both as reflected in the work that the National Archives does, and we saw some of that on the screen, as well as the lessons from the Japanese American National Museum, are very relevant and important, and we'll explore some of those during the remainder of our session. So I would like to get right into the conversation. We have two panelists. Unfortunately, our other two panelists were unable to join us this afternoon. And as Maria said, this session is entitled Becoming an American. And as we all know, the conversation is a critical one, and one in which perhaps is slightly shifted as a result of the elections, but nonetheless, one in which there is work that does need to be done as we go forward, as you've heard from the prior panel. So I'm going to ask our two panelists to talk a little bit about their own stories, but their own path and the organizations that they work with, so we have a little better sense of what has led them to the work that they are currently involved in. And so as Maria said, Cynthia Buiza, who is the executive director of the California Immigrant Policy Center, she's based here in Los Angeles, but has offices in other parts of the state, and has a long history of working in this sector. And Nahla Kayali, who is the founder and executive director of Access California Services based in Orange County. And as I was prepping for this, I had a chance to look at the work of both of their organizations online, and very impressive in terms of how the organizations have been built and the work that they are continuing to do. So let's start with Cynthia, a little bit about your background and then about the organization, and then we'll get into a conversation.
Sure. Thank you, Irene, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having us today on this very important conversation and very timely conversation. As Irene noted, I represent the California Immigrant Policy Center. We're a public policy organization that tries to integrate policymaking with organizing. So the core philosophy of our work is policies only work if your constituents are part of it. We were founded 20 years ago after the 1996 anti-immigrant laws were proposed in the state. And for the past 20 years, we have been helping build up what's now called California Blueprint, or what Karthik referred to also as the California Package. If you have heard about the driver's license bill, we were part of the coalition that helped pass AB 60, which allowed undocumented Californians to drive in our state. And as of today, we have almost 800,000 people who have applied for a license. It's a success story, and we want it to remain that way. I can talk a little bit more about some of those policies later. And as I said, we have helped pass in the State Assembly a host of many policies and programs that help protect many of the 1.6 undocumented Californians and also many of the immigrants that are here in California. As far as my story is concerned, I am an immigrant from the Philippines. I came here 15 years ago, a fully formed human being. So the question of becoming an American is a bit complicated, but very fascinating subject for me. And I grew up under the Marcos dictatorship. I was part of the youth movement there. And so for us to be in this moment where we're suddenly possibly facing a very dangerous moment in our history as a country, I had to pause. I couldn't watch the news for 2 days because this is exactly the kind of possibility of a government that people like me, that immigrant like me, flee. You know, immigrants are a complex community, but many of us leave our countries because of varied reasons, but part of it is because of conflict, of civil war, of dictatorial regimes, and life becomes untenable. And so America becomes your country of last hopes, right? This is where we anchor. This is the El Dorado of our dreams. Like, if I make it outside of Manila or Burma or Afghanistan or Rwanda or any of those places where life for the ordinary human being is very difficult, you think, maybe I could make it there finally. So it's a very important question, because how do we become Americans now, right? When I came here, the trajectory of my experience was, even if, the Philippines was referred to as the Banana Republic for a long time, and we were under the Spaniards for 400 years, under the Americans for 54 years, under the Japanese for 5 years, so we've had everybody. But at the same time, it was a very westernized culture. I grew up reading American literature. I was in love with Walt Whitman and Ralph Waldo Emerson before I even set foot in this land. But when I came here, it was still a huge culture shock. I was, why were the food portions so big? Why were there so many cars? When the plane was landing at LAX, it was a huge parking lot. It was the first thing that I saw. And so, but at the same time, everybody smiled at me. There was a welcoming feeling. And so the culture shock moved from that to isolation, because I'm the only person from my family here. I came here to study, but I met my Jewish husband. So all that life of swashbuckling adventure as a humanitarian aid activist in Southeast Asia, because I work with UNHCR and a bunch of other refugee organizations in Southeast Asia before I came here. All that ended with love, right? Like, I met my husband and I stayed, and I ended up working with the immigrant rights movement in the state. So it was what I thought would have been a trajectory was a very similar, familiar immigrant experience. You leave your homeland out of various reasons. You arrive, you're a stranger in a strange land. You feel lonely and alone. And that isolation, I've heard that amongst many immigrants myself who came here a little older. It's harder to immediately feel you're part of the society when you carry so much of your memories and your cultural heritage with you. But then when I started working, I started making friends. Then it became this journey of belonging as well. The Jewish community embraced me like I was their own. And then soon enough, when I became part of the immigrant rights movement in the state, it was like I was back amongst the familiar space that I work in Southeast Asia. So that has been kind of my immigrant experience. And I talk to many fellow immigrants because that's part of my work. I listen to their stories, and it's similar. The idea of integration should be not just about whether you learn English or you adopt this great American ethic of work hard and it will pay off, or you embrace the cultural beauty that is in this country. I think it's also about being able to integrate who you were, where you came from, and who you are now. And I think part of the challenges that we've had in integrating many immigrant communities is because we force them somehow, however it is, whether it's through policies or some type of cultural programs, to abandon their cultural heritage. It's impossible. I will always be a daughter of my homeland, but I am also now a daughter of the United States. And my challenge is, how can I fuse those two so that I integrate them and then I become this fully functioning American citizen? And I'm not going to speak for the rest of my fellow immigrants, but there is that map that immigrants like me travel through. and that it takes us to this place where, okay, we've gotten through this hurdle of arriving, being isolated, belonging, and becoming. Good, we can just go on, right? Except then it would be irresponsible not to address the moment we're in. You do ask yourself now, with all that's going on and the anti-immigrant rhetoric and scapegoating that's taking place, and the hate that's very prevalent in some spaces. I have had friends who had experienced that, a Filipino family who actually has children who were born here. They were just driving through San Diego and they were pelted by a bunch of young boys with eggs telling them to go home. It's a challenge just from that. Set aside a bit what we need to do to fight and struggle, because we will do that, and I can share with you later what my organization and our partners are planning to do to create some type of a framework that other states could look at, not only to defend immigrants, but also to reach out, to build bridges. But that basic question right now, how do we move forward when we were succeeding very well, at least in California, to pursue this model of belonging and integration that could have been, that is also taking place in other parts of the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Nahla?
Thank you for allowing me to speak about my journey here in United States. And I'm an immigrant. I arrived to New York airport, and that was my first time seeing different ethnicity, walking around where I was born and raised, and my family were Palestinian in Syria. So I was only exposed to Syrian and Palestinians. And when I walked into the airport and saw so many different ethnicity, it was back in the 70s where TVs not really were a lot in Syria. And we were watching the episodes from United States. It got me encouraged. I dropped of school and started dreaming about America. And I think so many people outside United States, their dream to be here. Our Constitution, our flag, our Statue of Liberty is a censor to the whole world of freedom, or where you can be whatever you want to be. I came as a wife, had 2 children. I went through, just like any other immigrant, through isolations and being isolated, not to be involved in the community. It took me a while. I went through hardship in my life, and I said, I seeked help, and I felt the person who's trying to help me did not understand who I am. And again, I seeked another help from another person, a therapist, and I felt the same thing, did not understand who I am. Then I decided where other people like me go. I started a nonprofit organization. It's Health and Human Services to serve the Arab American and the Muslim community. I opened the door with a folding table, phone from my house, and a friend who was administering a program for Healthy Family at that time and gave me $2,000. I started the organization. I lived the American dream. I am who I want to be. I did not finish education, but even if I went through the school, I will do the same thing what I did today. And no other country will give me that opportunity to have over 40 staff, close to $2 million budget, serving the community, the underserved. It took me a while to say, oh, human services, it's not only my own community. It's anybody who are in need. I changed the nonprofit mission statement and we open the door to everyone who is underserved. I'm an advocate. I believe in humanity. Humanity doesn't take a certain passport or a citizen or ethnicity. Human being is a human being. That's where we want to advocate and help. Our immigration system, it should be very friendly, and we need to advocate to have it as a friendly system. Everybody wants to come to America for the freedom, for where they can be. In the last 5 years, we've been serving a lot of refugees. We have contract with government to serve refugees. And every refugee is a story. Every immigrant is a story. And they deserve the dignity that they were born with it. At Access California Services, we don't give anybody dignity. We help them to maintain their dignity. We provide a lot of services, and they bring a lot to add to the fabric of United States. United States is not only one color, it's all of us. That's the beauty about United States. When you put all minds from around the world together, they come up with a great system. And this country gives a lot of opportunity to so many people. Our immigration system should not be a fight. It should be a very friendly, because people want to be Americans, and we need to help them to become American, just like we did. And again, I say it, whatever I accomplished in this country, in my new country here, I cannot accomplish anywhere in the world. We provide wraparound services. Our door is open to help anyone who needs any help, regardless of the financial assistance. Whatever they need. They want to become a citizen, we help them to become a citizen. They need immigration services, they need to learn English, they need therapy, they need case management, we help them. We even bring in children to do their homework with us because we want them to be successful. We have the after-school program, we have the youth program, where we try to acculturate them and tell them and talk to them about how America is beautiful. And that's why they came, and their parents brought them to this country to be successful. I loved our previous panelists to tell us, immigrants, they don't engage in a lot of gangs, or they don't engage with a lot of problems here. They really want to make it, and they want to be successful. You should see the refugees right now. They said, do not help us with money, get us a job. Every time we meet with our team, say, if you really want to help the person preserve their dignity, give them a job. That's where you can be able to help them. And the sky is the limit in the United States. And we always tell them, and we always talk to them, it is hard at the beginning of your life here, but you will be successful. And we always come and talk to them about what we went through and how we are successful. And we always tell them, you will be in our shoes. You will be sitting behind our desk and helping the community. America is a great country, and we really need not to fight for immigration services, we need to advocate to make it better. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you both for the work that you are doing.